But it's very common for people of different branches of Christianity to work together and have no problems. But it's when things get weird is when you like one thing is way worse than the other thing, or one thing opposes the existence of another thing. Now we're getting to extreme differences, like if the difference between the Hamas and Israel, like if you're getting to that. Or if you're getting to, Nazis and the Jews, or if you're getting to, there's things that you can get to where you're like, okay, this is valid,
Yeah.
These are valid reasons to not be worried. But if you do that and it keeps pushing in a certain direction, it could get to Catholics hating the Protestants. And that's what the fuck happened in Ireland. They were blowing each other up. I mean, when I went to Belfast, Northern Ireland, for a UFC once, there's police cars that are covered with like steel plates to bomb-proof them.
Wow.
Have you ever seen it? It's
No.
wild. It's wild. And the people that live there, there's people that are there right now that still remember the IRA and they remember all the bombings and the terrorists and the horrible things that people from both sides of Ireland did to each other. They're two totally different countries. Northern Ireland's a completely different country than Ireland because of that, and because and a lot of it was wrapped up in religion. And I mean, we don't want to think that could happen, but whenever you have this thing where you're against someone who's not on your team, that could take place. You could have like a peaceful coexistence, like Baptists do with Methodists. Or it could be fucking horrible, and you could other that person, and it's just a part of human programming.
So I agree with the new atheist about how many problems have been caused by religion, and I'm an atheist myself. I grew up with no religion. On the other hand, the empirical literature suggests that religious people tend to be happier, and also suggests that conservatives tend to be happier than liberals. And that's a very interesting finding to me because I grew up in a very secular, liberal context, was never even tempted by religion, really. Like, how they say there's no atheists in foxholes?
Right.
I'd be an atheist in a foxhole. Like, I wouldn't even believe in God, I think, if it's nowhere in me. But it's an interesting and pretty verified result, I think, at this point, that conservatives tend to be happier than liberals, less mental illness, and the religious tend to be happier than the secular. So then the question becomes, why is that? Is it because they believe in religion? Or is it explained by a third variable? Is it correlation without causation? Is it that religious people have communities, they have somewhere to go to where they see familiar faces every Sunday, and atheists lack that, or they don't have it automatically, and it's
that's certainly a factor,
tough to build.
Right?
I think
it's unquestionably a factor.
Got to be a factor, yeah.
Yeah, people need community. It is absolutely a part of us. And one of the things you see in primarily secular places, like if you think about New York City, there's so many people, but yet they're not friends with each other, and they're all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend Jim Norton the other day. He's like, I've lived next door to my neighbor for 10 years. I have no fucking idea who he is.
Yeah.
And they all just live in this giant stack of humans that they don't know. And, that's normal.
I've had culture shock when I've come to the South because I grew up in North Jersey, right outside of New York, and I didn't realize that until I came to the South, until I hung out in Florida and even the Midwest, that people in the Northeast aren't as nice.
I have a theory for that.
What's your theory?
Well, my primary theory for why people are so wild on the East Coast, because they are wild and aggressive, is because those are the ancestors of the people that fucking came across on boats. They were people that took a crazy chance.
Ambitious people.
Yeah, before YouTube.
Competitive, ambitious people.
And mean. I mean, just the echoes of the past. Have you watched Gangs of New York? You ever watch that movie? But, we think of New York City as this metropolitan. It used to be a horrible, crime-ridden, murderous place to be. And at the turn of the century, when people were coming over here from Europe, the people that came here from all parts of the world, those people came from somewhere that sucked, and they took a wild, crazy chance to try to make it in America. And it was probably very aggressive, and it was during the time of the Depression. So you're dealing with like really fucking scared people and really desperate people. And you're dealing with like very aggressive culture. And then a lot of people were like, fuck this, I'm going west. And they just kept going. They just kept going until on the west coast of the country, whether it's because of the entertainment industry or was because of the amazing climate. I think there's a combination of those two. That became like the most progressive, the least aggressive, the most open-minded. Like when I used to hear about fighters coming from California, I'd be like, how good could he be? That's what I used to think when I was a kid. I was thinking, you're going to get a good fighter, they're all going to come out of the cities. They're all going to come out of places where there's like a lot of hardship and people are like push and shove, and you're going to get your ass kicked at school all the time. And then you get a few dudes that grew up in the South that lived, in like hard scrabble neighborhoods, coal mining communities. They were badasses too. There's the hobos like Jack Dempsey, the dudes who rode the fucking railroad trains, and just hard men who did hard jobs, and they were scary too. But once you got to California, those dudes, what's a ridiculous thing to think. But that it comes out of this thing where the people that arrived there, they dealt with, those are the people that stayed. They're the people that like were fine with that or didn't know another way of life.
I watched like 5 or 6 hours of the New York City history documentary by Rick Burns.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
You know Rick Burns?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, Ken Burns' brother that no one talks about. It's funny to me that Ken Burns has a brother that makes exactly Ken Burns style documentaries.
That is kind of funny.
Great, by the way. He's not like worse than his brother.
I don't think I've seen any of
but
his
no
stuff.
one ever talks about him.
I don't think I've seen any of his stuff.
Anyway, he has like a mega marathon New York City history documentary that's fantastic. And
what's it called?
I think it's just called New York. Rick Burns New York. You need to like buy a subscription within Amazon Prime to get it. It's really annoying, but worth it. And from there I learned that the Empire State Building was supposed to be a parking spot for a blimp or a dirigible, whatever it's called technically.
Really?
That was the pretext for why they had to build the spire higher. It was total BS because they wanted to get it over the Chrysler Building. So they said, we got to park blimps here. That's why we need this tall thing. And then they tried to park a blimp, but they didn't even build it to really work or be practical. It was just a pretext for why they needed to get higher than the Chrysler Building. But there is a picture of, I don't know if it's a real picture or if it was the kind of the blueprint of the Empire State Building with a blimp parked.
Hold that
there.
thought because I really have to pee.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this more. We'll be right back.
Okay.